My name's Mr. X. This is the Extreme channel. I'm really happy you're here today because this is the future of the channel. Today we're going to do a newer segment that will be the most regular segment on the channel, and I think probably the most desired one for people to watch. But we are here to do another Xtrumble, where in one corner we have custom quarter scale Psylocke versus Sentinel against custom quarter scale Psylocke versus Sentinel. It doesn't get any more evenly matched than this, folks. Let's do it.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Mr. X with the Extreme channel. Today it is time for another Xtrumble. That is right, an Extreme Rumble. That is where we take two similar statues and we contrast, we compare, we measure, we study, we collate. Collate? That's not a fucking synonym. Anyway, we're going to compare these two pieces, and as I said in the intro, it doesn't get any more similar than this. We have two custom quarter scale versus Sentinel Psylockes. They're almost the exact same concept, but as you see, they're totally different. Now, this is the third Xtrumble we've done. The first one was XM Mystique versus Sideshow Mystique, and then the second one was the new Daredevil Shadowlands versus the premium format one. As I said in the intro, moving forward, this is what the channel is going to be about. These are going to be my favorite segments. These are going to be the most segments. Right now, behind the camera, I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, about 10 to 12, actually more than that, Wolverines. So this is a big part of the channel. I'm going to Xtrumble both and then decide which one I like better. And I might decide which one to sell. Probably neither of these right now, but eventually, you never know. And as I do these Xtrumbles, I don't have a format worked out yet. I've tried a few different formats, and one of the key things is I've reviewed both of these pieces individually. So if you want to go check out those reviews, go do that. And I don't want to just cover the same information. So today I'm going to kind of go off cuff, and there's not going to be a format like there normally is, but I'm just going to compare them as I go. And maybe eventually I'll get a more standardized format for Xtrumbles. But with that, let's go ahead and start. So these are both custom, means they were private commissions, and we're not allowed to talk about where they come from. And people often ask me why. It's mainly because the people making them, they just don't want to share the information. And realistically, they don't need more customers. They have plenty with these. I know that sounds weird, but it's just the reality of things. So they're from two different custom groups, both very secretive about their information. And I have multiple pieces from both groups. The Psylocke here, I also have their Phoenix Force statues. I have a Fastball, Wolverine, and Colossus. I have a black suited Superman. This one I have Wolverine vs. Wendigo, X-Force Wolverine, Silver Surfer, and many, many more. And I have many more coming from both, ironically. But let's start off with some basics, the differences between these two. First of all, the price was significantly different, the retail price. This Psylocke right here, again, if you want to know the specifics, go back to my reviews, is quite a bit more affordable than this one right here. This one runs, I'm trying to do the math in my head, this one runs about 60 to 70% more, not to mention shipping. Shipping was much more expensive on this one because it's quite a bit heavier. Size-wise, they're both, as you see, close to the same height. This one's about 26 inches wide. This one is about 16, so this one takes up a lot more display space. And deep, they're about the same. Height, they're about the same. They made 65 of these. They made 60 of these. Again, very, very similar. There are a ton of switch outs for both of them. And I was going to get really fancy on you, but I'm just getting lazy. So check out all these heads. The top row is the one versus the Sentinel hand. The bottom row is the one versus the Sentinel head. And some of the other switch outs include hands. They have a few normal hands, but most of their hands are holding swords or their psychic blades. So here's a comparison between the swords. The top one again is the sentinel hand, the bottom is the sentinel head. And then here are their psychic blades. The top one is the sentinel hand, the bottom is the sentinel head. And we'll go into a little bit more detail later, but let's talk about the concepts of both of these. They're both Psylocke versus Sentinel. Pretty obvious, pretty duh. She's using the same powers for both of them. As you saw in the photos, this one also has a butterfly. That's what I call it, her butterfly, to use her telekinetic and telepathy powers. She has swords. You can have swords in both of her hands. Here's a picture of that right here on the one with the head. And here's a picture of that with the one on the hand. And actually, let's just do a lot of comparison pictures right now. So here's both of them with the butterfly portrait. Here is both with an alternate portrait. And then here is another alternate portrait. So as you see, a lot of similar things going on. Now conceptually, they both defeated a sentinel, they both used their powers to do it, but some of the differences that we have here. First of all, this one, she really used her psychic weapons. You can tell that she cut the sentinel in half. It's clear that it was from something, not just a normal weapon, where here you have a sword in the eye, but that's about it. You can't really tell anywhere else. There's a little cut above right here, but she didn't really showcase her power. She is showcasing it up here, but she did not use it destroying the sentinel. So a little bit of conceptual difference with that. Another one we talked about in the review on this one a few days ago, much more sexy, much more sultry, where this is kind of the action badass pose. And if you remember, if you watched my review, I said I prefer this type of pose. However, when you're looking at the concept of both of these, which one really stands out as showcasing Psylocke's powers? Because they're both fighting a sentinel. They both beat the sentinel. They both have similar switch outs. I think that has to go to the one on the left. The concept is a little bit better on this one. It's a little bit more advanced. The intricacy of the piece. Now let's talk about the design. I guess we are following the normal format. But design-wise, they both have a lot of pros and cons in the same area. This is a very difficult Xtrumble to do. I didn't expect it to be this difficult, actually. I'm trying to think if she said that. She didn't. But design-wise, no seams on either of them. The swords are both loose. This one has the light up feature, if you recall that. The psychic blade lights up. This one does not. This one takes up a lot more space, which is, as a collector, that's always a negative. So the fact that it probably takes up 70% wider space, I think, is definitely something to be looked at. Design-wise, I think it's cool that she has a masked portrait. I think that would have been a lot cooler on this piece right here, because all four of the portraits, as I talked about in the review on Monday, are very similar. Also, the fact that this weighs probably twice as much as this piece is a negative. So when it comes to design, I'm gonna have to give it to the sentinel head. And I promise you, I'm not trying to make these Xtrumbles equal out. You know, I have no dog in this fight, but yeah. So let's talk about the paint and sculpt of both of these. Both are done by excellent sculptors. The one on the left I favor a little bit more, but the one on the right does do excellent work. As we talk about a lot with Psylocke, her portrait is extremely difficult to get right, and I think both of them missed it. If you've watched my reviews on these pieces, you see that I'm not 100% happy with either of the portraits. That's particularly why I like this mask portrait better. It actually covers up some of it. I like her sculpt in her hair on this side much better. I like that you have different options. It's very different. It's long flowing. It's detailed in both of them. I think I just like the way that it presents itself more on the right. Regarding the anatomy, I think both very similar. Let's take a look at the ass shot. Everyone wants to see this. Here's an ass shot comparing them. So very similar. I think one big bonus to the piece over here is there's a lot more folds in the costume and there's variation in the costume. What I mean by that is when you look at both, her shirt is completely the same, where she has this textured side shirt. I'm not feeling up her boob, I promise. She has this textured side shirt and she does not, so that's a little more detailed, adds a little bit more to the sculpt. Like I said, the portraits, I favor the portraits on this side a little more, but I think they're decently even. Pros and cons for different reasons. I think the anatomy is pretty even. It depends on where you look at. As I said, I think they did a good job with her muscle tones, but I think they did a good job with her being more muscular. So I like how she's a little more slim, she's a little more muscular, which makes sense because she's in this action dynamic pose. So the sculpt is pretty tough. I have to go back down to the base, I think. Looking at the base, I think they're both very good. This is a really tough one. I think the rock is better on this piece. I love the sentinel head. If you recall when I reviewed this, I was really dick riding the sentinel head, and I still am. It's fantastic. The sentinel hand is definitely more detailed, without a doubt. This is more of a, to me, this is more of a comic version on the right, and this is more of a live action real version on the left. You know, I'm gonna have to give the sculpt a dead tie on both of these. And that seems weird to me because Franco Carlissimo, my favorite sculptor, is, you know, who I got to hang out with in New York. I think it was him. I was really drunk, but I'm going to share that story forever. I hope you're watching. And surprisingly, yeah, it's very surprising. Paint, though, is not going to be very surprising. I'm going to give paint to this one for sure, and let me tell you why. First of all, I think there's a lot more variation in this statue that really makes it pop, and a lot of that is the skin tones and the costume and the subtleties in the hair, and even the portraits, where even if you look close on her skin, it's very imperfect. You can definitely tell this was done by different factories, and the exact same thing for the bases. A lot more detail in the paint, looks a lot more clean, crisp cut on the one on the sentinel hand. So definitely a better paint job on the one on the left. And both of them have some imperfections. Go back and watch my reviews. It's the third time I've told you to do it. Do it. So it's kind of interesting, the paint wins there. So if you look at the categories, kind of as a review, concept goes to the sentinel hand. Design goes to the sentinel head. Sculpt, pretty close, and paint goes to the sentinel hand. Does that mean that this one's a clear winner? Yeah, it does actually. I think the Psylocke versus sentinel hand is the better piece. I have no doubt in my mind if I had to sell one right now, I would want to get rid of it. I'd keep this one. However, I do really like this piece. I really like the head. I think Psylocke has done well. I think that the base is done fantastic. I like how most of the base is the head. So I actually had an idea that I ran by Jason, who does a lot of my painting. Right now, I recently missed out on Spooktacular because I was trying to finish reading an omnibus. So I put my phone away, said, I'm not going to look at this shit for 30 minutes. And then all of a sudden, Sideshow came out with their X-Force variant Psylocke. Now, both of these are way better than that, but I would love an X-Force variant Psylocke. I have an X-Force Wolverine. I have an X-Force Deadpool. So I ran it by Jason. What if we repainted her X-Force style? Then I could justify keeping her and put her with that collection. So I think that's what we're going to do. A repaint on the head would be awesome as well because I love the sculpt of it. Very comic-ish, but and the paint's decent, but I don't want to ship that whole thing, so it'd be real easy just to ship her, and he could probably repaint some of her portraits, which I think would help as well. So let me sum this up. I'm going to do some side-by-side photos of these so you guys can compare them. I don't think I liked this format of an Xtrumble as good as some of the previous formats, so I'll kind of have to figure out how I'm going to do that. Probably because I just reviewed this. I actually just reviewed it like an hour ago, so it's still really fresh, and I didn't want to just go over the same stuff over and over. But I'll end it. I'll put in some music, some kind of non-copyrighted YouTube music, which is hard to find. Might be stupid, so if so, just mute your volume. But of some side-by-side pictures of some of the close-ups and things like that, while you guys can make some comments on which one you think wins and why. And also, if you think there's a better one out there, please comment that below. So with that, I really appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care.